Now broadcasting from beautiful downtown Tallahassee, it's Classic Movie Reviews with Snark.
Welcome to today's show. My name is John. As always, you can subscribe to the show on iTunes or follow the links to social media in the podcast show notes. You can also go to snarkymoviereviews.com to read notes, bios, and other random movie thoughts. Remember, this show is completely free and independent. All I ask is that you jump over to iTunes and give me a review. I'm continuing the series about people trying to go somewhere or get something done and there are obstacles in the way. Stagecoach 1939 was the first sound western and the first of many times legendary director John Ford used Monument Valley as a setting for a film. This movie was meant as a vehicle to launch two stars. For one it took, for the other not so much. Dallas was a woman of, shall we say, low moral values, or in another word, awesome. The church ladies of the town loaded her up on the stage. You know those western towns were probably a lot of fun until they got school marms and lawmen. Claire Trevor, who we mentioned in episode 40, Key Largo 1948, did a great job handling this complex role. However, she never became the big star that was expected. The Ringo Kid was a youth that was serving time for murder and broke out to kill another man. But he wasn't a bad guy, as he was framed and the second killing would be justified. John Wayne played the role of the kid at the tender age of 31. Of course, we have talked about John Wayne ad nauseum, beginning with episode 3, McClintock, 1963. Hatfield was a mysterious southern gentleman riding on the stagecoach. He had a real interest in a pregnant woman and a secret. John Carradine was great as always in this role. We first talked about John Carradine in episode 12, Billy the Kid vs. Dracula, 1966. Dr. Josiah Boone was a pretty good doctor, but he couldn't resist the grape, or the hops, or the barley, or anything else he could drink. The role was handled expertly by Thomas Mitchell, who had quit drinking 2 years prior himself. He seemed to play this role in several other films as well. We talked about Thomas Mitchell in episode 53, It's a Wonderful Life, 1946. Samuel Peacock was a very mild-mannered whiskey dealer. This role was handled masterfully by Donald Meeks. Meeks had a dome-shaped bald head and he was very diminutive. Donald Meeks made a career out of playing this type of character. However, this was not his off-screen persona. Meeks was born in Scotland in 1878. He came to America in 1912, but by that time he had already been in 800 shows in Britain and Australia. He was also part of an acrobatic troupe, but a fall from the wire resulted in several broken bones. After he was healed, he joined the U.S. 6th Pennsylvania Regiment and served in Cuba during the Spanish-American War. He was wounded and lost his hair as a result of a yellow fever bout. Ouch! When World War I broke out, he joined the Canadian Highlanders as a corporal, but never left Canada. In 1903, he made his first appearance on Broadway. He was in his first movie, The Clyde Mystery, in 1931. In 1933, Donald and his wife Belle moved to Hollywood. He mostly moved from studio to studio, but was a highly sought-after character actor. His roles include toy maker Mr. Poppins in You Can't Take It With You, 1938, nervous whiskey salesman Samuel Peacock in Stagecoach, 1939, a shady gambler in My Little Chickadee, 1940, beekeeper Bartholomew in Nick Carter, Master Detective, 1939. Meeks did have roles where he wasn't the meek character. See what I did there? These films include a courageous prospector fighting villains in Barbary Coast, 1935, a miser in The Toast of New York, 1937, a citizen trying to collect a reward by unmasking Edward G. Robinson in The Whole Town's Talking, 1935, a tough railroad executive in Jesse James, 1939, and The Return of Frank James, 1940. In his 15 years in acting, he was in 120 movies. He died in 1946 at the age of 68. The Stagecoach was driven by Buck. He was the comic relief for the movie. He was cracking wise and acting afraid the whole time. He had a large Mexican family and was always hungry. This role was performed by Andy Devine. Devine was a large American actor that had a unique voice and might be considered authentic frontier gibberish. Devine started with small roles in silent films, and finally he was in a talkie, The Spirit of Notre Dame, 1931, because he was a good football player. His voice almost derailed his career. However, he turned it into a positive and spent the next 45 years being a much in-demand character actor, especially in westerns. He became hugely popular when he was teamed with Guy Madison from episode 60, The Command, 1954, in the television and radio Adventures of Wild Bill Hickok, 1951-58. He remained active in films until his death in 1977. Cavalry Lieutenant Blanchard was played by Tim Holt. Holt was the son of Western actor Jack Holt. He started acting as a kid. He had a good career going prior to World War II, including Stella Dallas, 1937, with Barbara Stanwyck, The Law West of Tombstone, 1938, Stagecoach, 1939, Fifth Avenue Girl, 1939, Swiss Family Robinson, 1940, Backstreet, 1941, and The Magnificent Ambersons, 1942. World War II interrupted Holt's career, but not John Wayne's. Holt was highly decorated during the war and returned to movies in My Darling Clementine, 1946. Holt was great in The Treasure of the Sierra Madres, 1948, but following Desert Passage, 1952, he left the film industry. In 1957, he came back for The Monster That Challenged the World, and again in 1971 for a moonshine film called That Stuff'll Kill Ya. The next year he was diagnosed with cancer and died in 1973. William Hopper played an uncredited cavalry sergeant. Hopper was the son of early gossip columnist Hedda Hopper. However, he is best known as Perry Mason's television investigator Paul Drake, 1957-66. Another UCLA football player, Woody Strode, played a bit part in the background. This African American became part of the Ford family and appeared in 4 of the director's films. He is probably best known as the gladiator that fought Kirk Douglas in Spartacus, 1960. The great stuntman Yakima Canutt played an uncredited cavalry scout. He was also in charge of the stunts and performed all the tough ones himself. The wonderful cowboy bit actor Hank Worden was also one of the cavalry troopers. He was discussed in episode 49, The Alamo, 1960. Steve Clemente, from episode 1, King Kong, 1933, had a small part in this film as well. I started watching this John Ford classic and was immediately struck by some similarities. I might be criticized for putting these two movies together, but they stole a lot from Stagecoach 1939 for Billy the Kid vs. Dracula 1966. Yeah, that's right, I said it. John Carradine played a mysterious Southern gentleman with an overdeveloped interest in a young lady in Stagecoach. In Billy the Kid vs. Dracula, he played a vampire, which is a type of Southern gentleman with an overdeveloped interest in a young lady. In Billy the Kid vs. Dracula and Stagecoach, there was a whiskey salesman on board. Thomas Mitchell played a drunk in Stagecoach and in It's a Wonderful Life. Traveling on the stage with the Doc was a bank embezzler, and Mitchell played a bank embezzler in Lost Horizon. Are these mere coincidences? Why, yes, I believe they are, but they're fun anyway. Director Ford, the master of the wide shot, shows cavalry, stagecoaches, and Indians moving across the mesas. 2 scouts speed into the cavalry camp and report that Geronimo is on the move. They get a telegram with one word, Geronimo, before the line goes dead. The Overland stage pulls into Tonto, Arizona territory, driven by Buck, Andy Devine, whose voice is the second best style of authentic frontier gibberish. There are 2 passengers on the stage that will be continuing the journey to Lordsburg, New Mexico territory. They are Miss Lucy Mallory, Louise Platt, the pregnant wife of a cavalry officer, and Samuel Peacock, Donald Meeks, a mild-mannered whiskey salesman. A tall, slender drink of water studies Lucy, and when she asks who he is, they tell her that he is not a gentleman and is in fact a notorious gambler. Going only by the name of Hatfield, John Carradine is of course modeled on Doc Holliday. The marshal, Curly Wilcox, George Bancroft, tells Buck that the shotgun rider is out looking for the escaped Ringo Kid, John Wayne. And he finds out that Ringo is after the Plummer brothers for killing his father and falsely sending him to prison. When the marshal finds out that the Plummer brothers are in Lordsburg, he says he will go along as shotgun rider. Elsewhere in town, banker Gatewood, Burton Churchill, receives the $50,000 payroll shipment. He says what is good for the bank is good for the country. This line must have been a riot in the middle of the Great Depression. A group of church ladies from the Law and Order League escort Dallas, Claire Trevor, to the stage and insist that the woman of ill repute leave town. Festus, I told you to hustle up some rustlers, not rustle up some hustlers. About that time, the drunken Doc, Josiah Boone, played by Thomas Mitchell, is being evicted. Dallas asks for his help.
Doc, can they make me tell when I don't want to go? Do I have to
Now,
go?
Dallas, don't you go making no fuss.
Do I have to go, Doc, just because they say so?
Now, Dallas, I've got my orders. Don't blame these ladies. It ain't them.
It is them.
But instead, the pair walk across the road to the saloon to wait for the stage, followed by the church ladies as Shall We Gather at the River is piped into the soundtrack. Boone gets right into Peacock's whiskey samples. Lucy is already snotting up at Dallas. A cavalry patrol comes in led by Lieutenant Blanchard, Tim Holt. He lets them know that Geronimo is about and says they will escort them to Dry Forks where another escort is to be waiting. Hatfield joins the stage and says he will protect Lucy. At the edge of town, banker Gatewood flags them down and gets aboard. Of course he has the $50,000 in a small bag. Gatewood says he got a message from Lordsburg, although the telegraph line was down. Buck says he only took this job 10 years ago so he could marry his Mexican girlfriend. He has to take care of her whole family.
I just took this job 10 years ago so I could make enough money to marry my Mexican girl, Julieta. I've been working hard at it ever since. Bonnie, get over here! Oh! Marriage? Certainly. My wife's got more relatives than anyone you ever did see. I bet I'm feeding half the state of Chihuahua.
You will see this theme again with Andy Devine in about 3 more episodes. Marshal Curley is suspicious of Gatewood. The Ringo Kid, John Wayne, fires a gun to flag the stage down because his horse has gone lame. Curley, although a friend of the kid, arrests him.
Hiya, Buck. How's your folks?
Oh, just fine, Ringo, except my grandfather came
Shut up. Didn't expect to see you riding shotgun on this run, Marshal.
Going to Lordsburg? I figured you'd be there by this time.
No. Lame horse.
Easiest capture ever. Curly and Buck talk about what a great guy Ringo is. Doc Boone knows Ringo's family and mentions being discharged from the army after the War of the Rebellion. Hatfield chimes in saying, "You mean the War for the Southern Confederacy." I thought it was called the War of Northern Aggression, or the Late Unpleasantness in formal company. Curly makes small talk with Buck about how much he likes the kid and how he used to ride with his dad. The stage makes it to Dry Fork and finds out that the cavalry escort has moved to Apache Wells and the troops with them have orders to leave. Curly has the group vote on going forward or going back. Curly disrespects Dallas and Ringo calls him out. They vote to go forward. When Dallas sits at the table, Lucy and Hatfield move to the other end of the table as if they are too good. Ringo thinks it's him. Hatfield tells Lucy he was in her father's regiment during the war. Ringo makes sweet talk to Dallas. The group heads on to Apache Wells, and the escort leaves. The name of that place makes me think maybe the cowboys weren't the good guys. Peacock is scared, and the doc dotes over him and steals his whiskey. The banker goes on about America for Americans, while on the way to Apache Wells. The national debt, too much regulation, and needing a businessman for president. Man, that's scary. As they get cold in the mountains, Dallas tries to befriend Lucy, but is rebuffed. Lucy recognizes Hatfield's family crest on his cup. They diss Dallas, and Ringo makes them pass the water to her. Dallas and Ringo keep making eyes. When they get to Apache Wells, the Mexicans are well armed and let them know that the soldiers left for Lordsburg after Lucy's husband was wounded. Lucy again rebuffs Dallas, and then she faints. She is having her baby, and the drunken doctor, with the help of Dallas, must deliver the baby. The doc calls for black coffee, and Ringo is sent for boiling water. I'm not sure what the hot water is for. TheStraightDope.com said it may be to sterilize the doctor's hands and instruments, although bacteria was just being understood around these times. The Mexican station manager's wife comes in, and she is an Apache. The whites get a little freaked out. The doc goes in and manages to get the job done. In the night, the vaqueros run away with the spare horses. That night, Dallas comes outside with a healthy baby. Ringo gets all Twitter-pated. The doc, of course, goes right back to drinking. A little later, Ringo asks Dallas to marry him. He tells her about his ranch on the Mexican side of the river. Short courtship. Dallas won't give him an answer because of her past. In the morning, they do a little racial stereotyping with the Mexican stage manager when his Apache wife runs off.
Honey, What's wrong, Chris?
My wife, Yakima, she ran away. When I went down, she was gone.
The way you come busting in here, you think...
Well, excuse me, kid.
Come busting in here, you think we were being attacked.
You can find another wife.
Sure, I can find another wife. But you take my rifle and my horse? Oh, I never saw her. I love her so much. I beat it with a whip, and she never get tired.
Your wife?
No, my horse. I can find another wife easy, yes, but not a horse like that. Mala Yakima.
Gatewood wants to push on, but Lucy's condition keeps him in place. The doc finds out that Dallas has been taking care of the baby all night. Dallas tells Doc about the proposal and asks if a girl like her should marry someone that doesn't know her past. Dallas tells Ringo that she will marry him if he gives up his plans to kill the Plummer brothers. Dallas convinces him to run away, but she says she can't leave Lucy and the baby yet, but will join him later. Ringo escapes, but only goes about 60 feet when he sees Apache smoke signals and stops. As quickly as possible, everyone gathers their belongings and they head for Lee's Ferry. The group is at each other's throats as the tension builds. When the stage pulls into Lee's Ferry, the buildings and the ferry have been burned. Curly lets Ringo out of his handcuffs in case he needs to fight. Hatfield sees the Apaches moving along the mountain crest. The rest of the group lashes large logs to the side of the stagecoach so it will float across the river. This is the greatest example of basic Boy Scout skills I have ever seen. The horses swim and pull the stagecoach across the river. This is an incredible pre-CGI stunt with at least 3 stuntmen, including Yakima Canutt, on the stagecoach. If you haven't seen this, watch this movie as soon as this podcast is over. The stage now heads to Lordsburg, and all believe the danger has passed as they have safely crossed the river. The stagecoach is then attacked by a band of mounted Apaches. Peacock is hit by an arrow in the chest at the beginning of the fight. Buck drives the coach at full speed while Curly provides covering fire with his double-barrel shotgun. Ringo climbs on top of the stage and uses a Winchester rifle. Hatfield is firing a pistol from inside the stagecoach. As the doc treats Peacock, he has to knock Gatewood out to keep him from jumping out of the stagecoach. One of the Indians jumps on the lead pair of horses of the stagecoach to slow them down. Ringo shoots him, and the stuntman, Yakima Canutt, hits the ground and is passed over by 6 horses and the stagecoach wheels. And there is no nice rut dug in the ground for the stuntman like when this stunt was duplicated with a truck in Raiders of the Lost Ark 1981. Hatfield is showing pure joy as he fires. Even Doc joins in on the defense after he gets Meeks stabilized. Buck is hit, and then Ringo has to jump from the stagecoach and then to each of the 3 pairs of horses to retrieve the reins. This is another great stunt. The stagecoach riders begin to run low on ammo. Hatfield has a single bullet left. He looks to Lucy, who is praying, and holds the gun to her head. Just before he fires, Hatfield is hit by an Indian bullet. At just that instant, Lucy hears the cavalry trumpets, and they chase away the attackers. Just before he dies, Hatfield admits to which family he belongs. The stage makes it to Lordsburg, and Lucy finds that her husband is only slightly wounded. Lucy is finally kind to Dallas. Some men recognize the Ringo Kid and run to tell Luke Plummer, the meanest of the brothers, that he is in town. Luke is playing poker and has aces and 8s. Another player comments saying, "A dead man's hand." Luke sends for his brothers. Ringo tells Curly to take Dallas to his ranch in Mexico. Gatewood was arrested for robbery when he gets off the stage. Curly gives Ringo a rifle and 10 minutes. Ringo shows that he has saved 3 rounds. Dallas begs him not to do it. Ringo walks Dallas home and he sees that she lives on what looks like Cat House Alley, but he doesn't care.
Open a crazy dream. Went out of my mind just hoping. Say goodbye here, kid.
He ain't never gonna say goodbye.
The 2 other Plummer brothers show up, as does Doc. Luke gets a shotgun from behind the bar. Buck comes in and tells them that Ringo is on his way. The doc stands up to Luke and forces him to leave the shotgun. The local newspaper editor says to print that the Ringo Kid was killed even before the fight starts. Ringo faces down the 3 brothers and kills all 3 in a fair fight. The shadows and lights of the pre-fight play like a film noir classic. Ringo walks back to Dallas and they embrace. Curly and Doc arrive on a buckboard and Ringo gets on board to go to jail. Curly says Dallas can ride a bit with the kid. When she gets on, the Doc and Curly throw rocks at the horses and let the pair get away. Curly says he will buy Doc a drink, and Doc says, just one.
Well, they're saved from the blessings of civilization.
Yeah. Doc? I'll buy you a drink.
Just one.
The buckboard with the lovers rides into the rising sun. The end. Andy Devine said he got the part over Ward Bond because Ward Bond couldn't drive a 6-horse team. Sadly, many horses were killed during the filming of this movie as they used a running W wire to make the horses fall. Wayne wore the hat from this film for the next 20 years until it was retired after Rio Bravo 1959. This film was lost until 1970 when a positive copy Wayne had was used to restore it. Once asked why the Indians didn't just shoot the horses, Ford said, because the movie would be over then. World famous short summary. Wagon train, really a stagecoach, moves through Indian territory. The EPUB for subscribers is on the site, so drop by and get your free copy. If you enjoyed this week's show, please tell your friends, and if you really want to help, drop over to iTunes and give me a review. If you want to comment, recommend a movie, or just say hi, follow the links in the show notes to my site. Beware the Moors.